You did what you were told to do. You made a budget. You packed lunches. You skipped vacations. You said no when everyone else was saying yes. You worked hard. You paid your bills on time. You avoided debt whenever you could. You tried to be responsible. So why does it still feel like you're running in place? Why does it seem like every time you get a little bit ahead, life reaches into your wallet and takes it right back? If you've ever looked at your bank account and thought, I'm doing everything right, so why isn't this working? You're not imagining it. Because being good with money still matters. But in today's economy, it's often not enough on its own. And understanding why might be the first step toward finally getting ahead. For decades, the formula seemed simple. Get a job, work hard, save money. Stay out of debt. Eventually, life would become more comfortable. And for many people, that formula actually worked. But over time, some important pieces of that equation changed. The cost of housing rose. Groceries became more expensive. Utilities climbed higher. Transportation costs increased. Healthcare expenses grew. Childcare costs exploded in many places. Meanwhile, wage growth often struggled to keep pace with the rising cost of living. Even people receiving raises sometimes found those raises disappearing into higher everyday expenses. You can be more responsible than ever and still feel like you're barely maintaining the same standard of living. That's not an excuse to give up. It's simply recognizing the reality many households are experiencing. Because you can't solve a problem accurately if you're working from outdated assumptions. Budgeting is important, seriously, if you don't know where your money is going. It's incredibly difficult to improve your situation. A budget creates awareness. It helps reduce waste. It keeps small expenses from quietly taking over your paycheck. But budgeting has limits. You can only cut so much. At some point, there aren't any streaming services left to cancel. No more coffees to skip. No more restaurant meals to eliminate. No more subscriptions hiding in the background. You can't coupon your way out of every financial challenge. If your essential expenses consume most of your income, budgeting alone won't create financial breathing room. That's the part many people don't talk about. Good money habits are necessary. They're just not always sufficient. Most financial advice focuses almost entirely on spending. Spend less, cut back. Sacrifice more. But there's another side to the equation. Income, sometimes. The most powerful financial move isn't finding another expense to eliminate. It's finding ways to increase what comes in. That could mean negotiating a raise, learning a skill that leads to higher paying work, changing employers, taking on occasional freelance projects, starting a small side business, selling something you've created, building income streams that aren't tied exclusively to the hours you work. None of these are overnight solutions, and none of them are guaranteed. But focusing only on reducing expenses eventually reaches a limit. Increasing earning potential doesn't always have the same ceiling. There's another challenge people rarely discuss. Doing nothing has a cost too. When prices continue rising year after year, staying exactly where you are financially can actually mean falling behind. The paycheck that covered everything 5 years ago may not stretch nearly as far today. The emergency fund that once felt substantial may no longer provide the same security. The skills that were enough to get hired years ago may need updating. Financial stability isn't always about getting richer. Sometimes it's simply about adapting, adjusting, learning, finding small ways to move forward so life doesn't quietly move backward around you. The people making progress financially aren't necessarily the smartest people in the room. And they aren't always the highest earners. Often, they're the people combining several simple strategies consistently. They know where their money goes. They avoid high-interest debt whenever possible. They maintain emergency savings. They continue learning new skills. They look for opportunities to increase income. They invest for the long term when they're able. They automate good habits instead of relying on motivation. Most importantly, they stop expecting one perfect trick to solve everything, because there usually isn't one. Financial progress today is less like finding a winning lottery ticket and more like building a bridge one plank at a time, slowly, boringly, consistently, until one day you realize you've crossed farther than you thought possible. If you've been feeling frustrated because you've been doing everything right and still struggling, that frustration makes sense. The financial world many of us grew up hearing about isn't exactly the one we're living in today. Being good with money still matters. In fact, it matters more than ever. But being good with money today means more than clipping coupons and sticking to a budget. It means understanding the environment you're operating in, being willing to adapt, growing your earning potential, protecting what you've built, and continuing to take small steps forward, even when progress feels slow, because getting ahead isn't about perfection. It's about refusing to stop moving, one decision, one habit, one opportunity at a time. And maybe that's what being financially responsible really means now, not surviving the old rules, but learning how to succeed under the new ones. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.